Once upon a time, in a kingdom covered by silver lakes and golden hills, there lived a princess named Isadora. She was the only daughter of King Aldrin and Queen Elenia, and from the day she was born, everyone in the castle treated her like porcelain wrapped in pearls. She wore silks spun with moonlight, dined from golden plates encrusted with rubies, and her chambermaids brought her fresh rose petals every morning to scent her hair. There wasn't a thing she wanted that she didn't get, and the word no was as foreign to her as the stars themselves. But all of this adoration came at a cost. Isadora grew proud, then demanding, then dangerously selfish. If a servant didn't bow low enough, she would scream. If a present wasn't wrapped in her 3 favorite colors, lilac, gold, and blush, she would throw it into the fountain. And if anyone else received praise or attention, she would pout until the entire castle was silent, walking on tiptoes to avoid her thunderous glare. Why should they be celebrated? I am the princess, she'd often declare, followed by, bring me something special to make me feel better. Now! One spring morning, as dew clung to the lavender fields, the queen called for Isadora. My darling, said Queen Elenia gently, brushing back her radiant child's golden curls. Today we ride out to the village. The people have planted gardens in your honor. Let us share your joy with them. Isadora wrinkled her nose. The village? Where the air stinks of sheep. No, thank you. They should bring their gardens to me. The Queen's smile faded. They are poor, my dear, but they have kind hearts. They've worked hard to honor you. I didn't ask them to, Isadora snapped. Tell them to send baskets. I want the prettiest flowers and 5 jars of that honey they brag about. That will do. That afternoon, the royal messenger delivered the princess's demand. The villagers, simple and kind people, packed lovely gifts in beautiful baskets, but they were confused and a little hurt. Meanwhile, in her tower room, Isadora sat on her golden balcony, sorting through the offerings. Oh, too yellow, too plain. What is this? Daisy honey? She flung the jar over her shoulder. It shattered on the stone floor below. A quiet gasp came from the hallway. One of the chambermaids had seen it. Her name was Feline, a soft-spoken girl who rarely said a word. Is something wrong? She asked gently. Isadora turned sharply. Wrong? Yes, everything is wrong. This gift is ugly and unworthy. Take it all away. Feline hesitated. Then, bravely, she said, Princess, maybe the gift isn't perfect, but it was given with love. Isadora blinked, stunned. Never had a servant spoken to her like that. You dare, she whispered. You dare tell me how I should feel. Feline bowed low. I'm sorry, Your Highness. I only meant... Guards, take her away! Immediately. Before the poor girl could explain, 2 guards whisked her out of the room. The Queen heard of it later, and her heart grew heavy. That night, she visited Isadora's room. My child, she said quietly, you are loved. But love is not something to demand. It is something you give. Everyone gives to me, Isadora said, picking at a platter of sugared grapes. That's how it should be. I'm the most important person in the kingdom. The Queen said nothing more. But a single tear welled in her eye as she left. The next morning, she and the king departed for a distant province, leaving Isadora to rule in their place for a fortnight, as a test of heart. And that's when the storm came. Toward evening, dark clouds tore across the sky. Lightning forked in the distance. The wind howled like wolves in the canyons, and as Isadora stood at her window, she saw a figure appear on the edge of the royal gardens. A woman, dressed in a tattered cloak, her hands trembling, her face half covered by her hood, stumbled toward the palace gates. Princess Isadora scowled. "Who lets beggars into the gardens?" But the woman came closer and glowed faintly, as if the mist itself fluttered from her gown. Lightning lit up Isadora's bedroom. Then darkness fell again. When she looked back, the woman stood in her chambers. "Who are you?" Isadora stepped back, heart pounding. "I am a messenger," said the woman, her voice like wind in the trees. "And I've come to see your heart." "My heart?" Isadora laughed nervously. "I am princess, beloved by all, adored." "Then let's test that, shall we?" The air shimmered. The woman raised her hand, and the entire tower seemed to breathe in. When Isadora blinked, the woman had vanished. So had her golden bed, her silken gown, even her slippers. She stood barefoot beside the fountain in the middle of the village square. Villagers bustled past her. No one stopped to bow. No one stared. No one recognized her. What is this?" she gasped. She hurried to a market stall. "You there! Where is the castle carriage?" The man shook his head. "No idea, miss. Care to buy some apples?" "Buy? I don't carry coins. I am the—" But her voice drifted off. Her velvet cape was now a worn shawl. Her hands no longer adorned with rings. She turned helplessly, looking for someone, anyone, who knew her. That's when she saw Feline. The former chambermaid was carrying a basket to the bakery. She saw Isadora and paused, then came closer. "You look familiar," Feline said with a curious tone. "You know me," Isadora cried. "Thank goodness! Help me! Something has happened. I don't know what, but I think it's a trick or magic." Feline tilted her head. "You're the princess?" "Yes! You remember! Tell them who I am!" Feline looked at her, then down at her dirty feet. "You don't look like the princess. What happened? I don't know. One moment I was in my chamber, and the next I was here wearing this, and nobody's listening to me." Feline watched her for another long moment. "Maybe," she said quietly, "it's your turn to listen." Listen? To what others feel, to what it means to be unloved or unimportant. We don't all throw honey jars when we're upset. Some of us make do with what we have. Isadora flushed, but she said nothing. What could she say? "I have an extra roll," said Feline after a pause. "Come, you look hungry." And for the first time in her life, Princess Isadora followed someone else's lead. She ate simply. She sat in the shadow of the bakery wall, listening to the wind and watching the village heartbeat. And inside her, something began to ache. Not from hunger, but from memory. That night, she had no silk sheets, just a scratchy blanket in the loft. But her heart was restless. Her life, the one she had always known, was unraveling, and she wasn't sure she wanted it back. Isadora awoke to the sound of morning bells and birdsong. For a moment, she forgot where she was. No canopy above her bed, no maids, no jewels, just sunshine slipping through attic beams, and the warmth of a borrowed blanket. Feline had already gone to work, but she'd left a small bowl of porridge by the hearth. Isadora sat quietly, stirred it, and stared at the spoon. The grains were rough, not like the creamy preserves she grew up with. But it was good. It tasted like effort, like real life. Outside, the village had begun to stir. Isadora wandered through it silently. A little boy tripped nearby and scraped his knee. His sister hurried to help him, whispering comforts, offering a broken cookie from her pocket. Isadora knelt down too. "I used to have bandages made from silk and herbs," she murmured, then tore a clean edge from her borrowed shawl and gently wrapped it around his knee. The boy looked at her in surprise and smiled. It was the first time in her life that someone had smiled at her without knowing who she was, and without being paid to do it. For a week, she walked among the people, helped stack firewood, carried water, sang lullabies to crying toddlers. By the end of that week, she wasn't Princess Isadora of the High Tower. She was just Isadora. Then, on the 8th evening, as fog rolled in from the hills, she sat alone under a chestnut tree. The village lanterns glowed like stars in the mist, and the air smelled of bread and pine. A breeze stirred her hair. "You've changed," said a voice behind her. She turned to see the cloaked woman, the one from her chamber, from the storm. "Please," said Isadora gently, "I don't want my crown back. I want to stay here. I like who I am here." The woman's eyes softened. "And now," Isadora added quietly, "I understand why you took it all. You didn't curse me. You gave me a mirror." At that, the woman smiled. "Well spoken, child. Some mirrors show more than a reflection. They show who we choose to be." With a sweep of her hand, the breeze lifted. Light shimmered. The shawl dissolved into silk once more. Her feet were no longer dust-covered, but in satin, and the crown rested gently in her lap. "You may return as yourself," the woman said, "not the girl who ruled from power, but the queen who will lead with heart." When Isadora returned to the palace, the servants froze, not in fear, but in wonder. She walked softer now, spoke sweeter, smiled more. And when she passed the nursery, she knelt by Phalene's little sister and told her a story about a selfish princess who lost everything but found much, much more.